Welcome back to Fleetyards, everyone. I am Captain Foley.
And I am Second Technician Commander Cockings. Second Technician Cockings.
Yes. Usually with these shows, I don't know what ship we're looking at, but today I do. So, had to do that. Anyway, welcome back to Fleetyards Mission Briefing, where we take a look at ships from the sci-fi universe and we kind of break them down and analyze them and talk about what things could be and why they work that way and why it was put there. Full episodes on ships like this will happen in the full Fleetyards episodes if we get to our Patreon goals and whatnot. So definitely check out the Patreon page if you can. And yeah, some great renders by Samuel, of course, as always, for this episode. So Samuel, why don't you tell everybody what ship we're looking at, because they don't know, because they never looked at the thumbnail or the title. Yes,
you clicked on this by pure accident while you're being waiting that. Yeah, we are looking at the JMC transport ship StarBug. Now, I want to thank Mario Marino, who was who did the Terrorbird model and designed the Gustus Grau, who made this model for me months and months ago. So no one did it for Fleetyards, so I had him make it for me, and I've been doing tweaks to get the texturing better and things. So this is model made by him. Thank you so much. So StarBug. So it's not real model, obviously. This is the one that we have. So StarBug. Stuart, have you watched Red Dwarf?
Of course, I've watched Red Dwarf.
What was your impression of StarBug when you first saw her? Do you remember? And what do you think now of the design?
I thought it was silly, like it was supposed to be, and I still think it's kind of out there. It's got some added little features that make it kind of silly, but yeah, definitely a neat design, kind of interesting shuttle design for sure.
What I like is that, Red Dwarf is back again, with season 10 and 11 or 11 and 12, I can't remember, and it's still going. That design is still in the show, and it doesn't age. It hasn't got that 80s like stupidity. It has some genuine functionality. I mean, obviously I'm biased, I'm used to it and I've grown up with it, but
it's got the British funny sci-fi stupidity. You're right, it doesn't have an 80s stupidity.
Yeah, it stands on its own better than it could do, And
you know why it stands on its own better than it could do? Because of those 4 landing legs, which would be good for multiple terrains, which why this design works.
Yes, and they go up when it flies. But yeah, so StarBug. Now, this is an interesting vehicle because we're going to talk about scale in a minute. I don't know if you realise, Stuart, but the scale changes.
Of course it does. Just like Star Trek.
But I mean a lot. The first time we see the vehicle, it's a 2-seater craft with no space, because that's all the set they had. Then it became a 4-seater craft. Then it became a 4-seater craft with lots of interior space, more than just 2 rooms. Then it went through a temporal altered dimension issue problem thing, and it suddenly became very big, and then it went through another one, and it became even bigger, and it became having massive cargo bays and engine rooms. It became like this massive super vehicle, but the same exterior with the same... So it became dimensionally warped at some point, which we're not going to talk about because no one knows how big that is. So we've gone...
It suffers from the TARDIS effect. Come on now, just say it.
It did, but it was sort of explained as that later on. But it's so the scale is a weird one with this. But we're going to go with the scale that's sort of... There's a few pictures on the internet that sort of say the rough scale, and we've gone with one of those. So this is just a scale. It does work, I think, for at least for the first version. Where there's basically just 2 or 3 rooms in it as a transport ship, as it should be, before it became a fully functional craft. But when I first thought design, I mean, I was young. I mean, Red Dwarf was out when I was young, but I watched it, as soon as I could, and it was funny, and I liked it. And it's just a fun craft. Seeing it in the later seasons was such a blast because it was given that real home feel. It was given all these cool rooms. I don't know if you remember, Stuart, but technologically speaking, it's a weird vehicle because, again, it's a British sci-fi show that I mean, okay, what do you remember the ship having to the technology? And I'll see if I can fill in some of your holes, so your gaps, I mean.
I don't remember anything specifically. I just remember that, I don't know, I watched the series quite a while ago, so I don't remember any of the specific technological items it has. So why don't you just fill us all in?
Well, it starts off as just like a shipped planet vehicle. It has those big thrusters, that's it.
Yeah.
It does have a cloaking device for 1 episode, but it has a cloaking device. Okay, great.
That goes to like Transformers too. Optimus Prime can fly in the first 3 episodes, which is like a 3-part movie, but then the Autobots can't fly all of a sudden. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it just, yeah. So it has so it has that ability. It has no weapons until it's upgraded with weapons by simulants, and so it has laser cannons. And at one point, they turn their garbage disposal tube into a rocket. They put gases and explosives into it, and it fires it as a missile. So then it has guns or weapons anyway. It has mostly sublight, but then at one point it gains a sort of fast and light, where they have they find a virus that gives them the ability to make the engines go like 6,000%, so they can travel across light years. It also gains a time drive at one point, which is great. But as you know, time travel is only useful if you can travel in space, because hey, 3 million years into deep space, and suddenly you go into the 17th century. Congratulations, you're in 17th century deep space. Doesn't help too much. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other things it gained over. I mean, it gained stasis pods it never had. It a whole load of things. So it's a very interesting ship that clearly, as you say, deals with the British sci-fi style. But let's talk design for a second. What do you think about this design, and like pick out bits and I don't know?
I think they started designing it and then realized, wow, that looks like a bug. So let's paint it green. Put like windows that look like eyes and a little thing that looks like a mouth, and call it StarBug. I think that's what happened. I think they started designing something and then went, I don't know if they started out with the StarBug idea necessarily and thought, let's design a ship that looks like a bug. I think they might have started designing a ship that ended up looking like a bug.
Because I see it as a starship. I'm sort of backward engineering how I think, but yeah, that does kind of look like that. I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's like a ladybug, a caterpillar, and then you add engines and legs,
Yeah. It's interesting too, the little fins on it, which look silly and have no purpose. Make it, I don't know, make it look like
aerodynamic
or antennas.
Yeah, it's very functional, Stuart. I mean, every piece has carefully been designed to serve a function and a place. But what do you think the scale was of the original version? Like, what in your head? How did you see the ship being? And it changes, but the primary original first-ish scale.
Size of maybe a little bit bigger than like a standard minivan kind of thing. Not. I like the cockpit anyway. It's about the size of a car. Yeah. So comparing it to something else sci-fi like a Galileo shuttle from TOS or something, probably the same size as like a standard Star Trek shuttle.
Well, go to the next picture then.
Oh. Well, yeah, runabout, cool. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, the interior is pretty much the exact same as the runabout cockpit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's 4 people, and in the runabout you can get 2 people there and then 2 people there, and it's just still differently proportioned. Wow. But this is obviously in the original sort of StarBug. There's the cockpit, there's the middle room cargo, and there's sort of the third room. And same with the runabout. It's got the primary, and the cockpit's pretty big in the runabout. It's a spacious thing. You've got the transporter bit in between. You've got an in between bit, and then you've got the final sort of dining area in the back. So it's not comfortable, but it is certainly functionally sort of similar, I suppose.
If we go to the next picture, there's another size comparison from the side and front, which I really appreciate, because actually StarBug has more internal volume than the runabout does. It's hard to see that from the top.
Yeah, I thought you'd like this one, because I mean, obviously it's a very Red Dwarf is not apart from the random stuff they find, it's not meant to be a technologically advanced anything. I believe that StarBug was decommissioned the style because it was faulty. So it's not an advanced ship. So I'm sure a lot of the bulk is just the tech to run it. But at the same time, if you look at like how many rooms you can fit in, well, you've got the cockpit, but actually that second part you could probably have maybe 2 decks, and the third section you've easily got a deck underneath the engines, maybe 2. So there is some internal volume, and at the front again, the room at the back of the runabout is pretty sizable. Well, there's at least 2 times that. So you've got some space for a couple of rooms. I mean, it's bigger than you think it is. It's a decent size. I mean, you can easily have a few bunks and not a lot of recreational area, but I mean, you've got a good sized thing, especially the aft is meant to be the whole cargo area. So
I love how there's like antennas and little things that look like stingers and things to make it look like a bug. I just think that's amazing.
It's really well designed. I think I really like it. It's a great design.
It's almost like a real world design. It's like modular, like a lot of NASA stuff.
Well,
You know
it's
what I
funny.
mean?
It's funny you mention that because in the last season, when they're before the studio, well, when they don't have a studio audience, I mean, and when the ship has been supersized, they can actually separate the third pod, which has a single door, but that's where the huge cargo bay is, and they separate it, and there's two separate engines in the middle bit, so each section is theoretically separatable if you need to escape. So it has boom separation as it were. The scaling doesn't really work if you look at it for this, but I mean the whole scale doesn't work for the ship anyway. Apart from maybe this version, maybe. So I thought modular makes sense. But yeah, it gives you a different perspective. I mean, there's a picture online which shows them roughly the same size, but they're not 3D. This gives you a real sense of scaling, Oh, the next picture is a after shot, and it really shows you that they're big, bulky engines, and I did the light rig for this as well. Big, functional, nice amount of mechanical pipes and things. A lot of these sci-fi's shows have stuff internal, a lot of them have pipes outside, but this one feels like, no, it is that basic. You need the petrol pump, the petrol lines to the engines, you need the, it feels very natural to me to have all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that a gun at the back? I forget.
See,
like
you would
Stinger?
think so, but no, it's never armed specifically, so I'm guessing sensor waste disposal, that would be from there. We know they have a waste disposal gun, but something to put there, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's a subspace antenna array to speak to the ship, because the ship's usually behind them, right? When they're like taking off, I don't know. Reasons and things. That's what we do here.
I want to ask though, so we had a briefly mentioned about whole scaling and how many rooms. Based on what is actually in the engine, the outside engines, do you think there needs to be any mechanical engine components in that bottom green section? Or is it all external? Is it all in the bits that come into the hull via those big green bits? Could that all be rooms and it naturally work, do you think?
I think the mechanical aspects are the outside parts. I think inside, underneath those engines, would likely be your fuel storage. Not necessarily all rooms. I mean, you need fuel, right?
Well, they could be next to the wands. They could be in that bit. That could be the fuel going into some part of the ship. Direct pump or direct line.
Possibly. B. Bug. B. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. But I would think most of the mechanical stuff would be on the outside.
Yeah. It kind of shows how bad the budget was when they built the StarBug, that they couldn't even plate that. Because it'd be so easy just to add plating, just to finish off that. They couldn't afford it. They just left the pipes open to space.
Yes.
No, I like it. I'm trying to wonder how they get out the ship, because there's multiple ways.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself.
We always think a lot of the same things at the same time. Keeps happening.
I was thinking it like a picture or two ago with the runabout.
Right.
And I just didn't mention it. I thought I'd mention it later. So I wasn't thinking at the exact same time.
Obviously, this is a fan model based on because there aren't any high definition stills of the original film miniature. Now the new shows come out, they've actually enhanced the StarBug model, and it's actually really, I want to get this one enhanced because there's a lot more detail in the new version, which is really good detail. But this is sort of based on a fan-made one that actually the crew of StarBug, of Red Dwarf, they actually saw the model and really liked it, and so Doug Naylor. So I guess it's kind of approved, but I mean, there is actually, like, I guess a hatch under where it says StarBug on the middle bit, maybe. There's kind of a hatch there. That could be an airlock, maybe. We do know, in fact, actually, there is an episode where they get stuck and Ace Rimmer comes in and there is like a walkway down. So I'm assuming that's probably the hatch. And then like a thing, maybe it opens up and a thing comes out and down. I think that's what happened in the episode. I think so.
Don't remember that specifically. I need to rewatch it again, but it's been a while. But
yeah, it was marooned, maybe. I don't know if that's when they go out of the ship or not. But yeah.
Cool. The next picture is a close-up of the engines. Very, very NASA shuttle type looking engines.
Yeah, very functional. I mean, I just wanted to show a close-up for higher detail level, but yeah. Cool. But the next photo is an after shot at the bottom. Again, you can see that sort of stinger thing, and you get to see the lower two, again, engines, because obviously it lands vertically, but it has to. There's no impulse. It's just, it's normal engines like NASA, so it's not really very advanced.
No, and those are also the takeoff engines, of course. So, yeah, it's kind of a simple design, but like I said, it makes sense. It's like a modular NASA design that they have today. It looks like something that could actually be thrown together.
Yes. Now, do you think this sort of design would work well to actually add more pods in between? If you can, yeah.
I think if it was modular, it could be very much adaptable to create different versions of it, like a cargo version or whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be fun to see. Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of the Eagles from Space 1999. You could put like a cargo module in the middle there and have it be the same kind of ship. Because you notice the center part doesn't have thrusters. So it could be that the center part can be swapped out for other equipment.
That'd be cool.
So
I'd love to see that. I mean, it's not invented, but I'd love to see it. You know, and you mentioned Space 99 we should definitely cover that ship at some point. I think I should get on that, make those renders. Yeah.
All right. So the next picture, shot from the front, and it's got that very like almost smiley face kind of bug look on it. It's like it's wearing sunglasses.
Definitely a bug.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a bug.
That's why I did the shot. It's really like
a grasshopper or something.
Yeah, perfect grasshopper. There you go. But it's definitely got some, not attitude, but it's got personality. You know.
Oh, absolutely.
And those two are floodlights in the middle that I lit. But what do you think the two bits next to it are in the middle? Do you think it's like the deflector dish? Because as we know, all ships must have a deflector dish.
Yeah. Sensor dish, maybe some kind of weapons pod thing that opens up. And
well, we know that it doesn't have weapons. I guess right at the end it does, but this is obviously the initial design variant. That's not what it was built for yet.
So yeah, probably sensors or deflector or something. See, I'm wearing my Star Trek hat, unfortunately. But anything at the front that's round must be a deflector.
Yes, that is how it works. But the next picture is just a nice little. We're just getting closer in now for the details, and again you can see the pointing out bits. I mean, they're presumably, you know, antennas for sensors and things. Yeah, not too much to say with this one, but
just not much to talk about.
Yeah.
Next one is a close up of like another kind of like a satellite dish almost, maybe a beacon.
We're assuming that's a primary dish. It does make sense to have a primary dish of some kind. So I'm assuming that's the communications array. Dedicated one, because it needs to communicate with everyone and everything. Yeah. And
the last picture is the first picture again. And StarBug. There we go.
But I've got to ask, do you like the ship any more or any less since we had this episode?
The same. We really didn't flesh too much out on it. I mean, it's so simplistic, it's hard to. I would love to see some kind of explanation as to what certain parts are, like those antennas and that thing at the front. But I think it's fun to speculate, but to really know for sure on something like this is very difficult, because it's not a sci-fi franchise that takes itself seriously enough to explain everything on the ship. So it's all fan extrapolation, and if you see a deck-by-deck plan or something, it's definitely a fan that did it, and you know, you can put in whatever you want. We could make our own Trekyards StarBug technical schematic.
Remember, guys, it has a cloaking device. They're as advanced as Romulans, at least.
And it's green, like the Romulans.
It's a Romulan ship.
Or maybe it's a Klingon ship, because you think that... Yeah. Yes. But we're not going to get into that. Anyway, guys, I think that's it for this episode.
Yep. So, Stuart, any closing thoughts?
Yes. StarBug, awesome little ship, and you can't take it too seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously, so that's all right. By the way, I've died since the episode, so I'm back, kind of. But anyway, This is what we do here on Fleetyards and Trekyards. We have a lot of fun, and I think this was a great little ship and a great look at it, even though we didn't really flesh it out too much. A full episode on this would be very interesting to research. I don't know if I could.
And I'd love to see this in comparison to, going to space dock and seeing the scale as it compares to the bigger universe. I'd love to get, if anyone has a Red Dwarf model, the classic one, I'd love to get that. But my closing thoughts: it's a great design. I mean, I don't see it as the comic sort of relief ship. I see it as a genuine ship. I'm just so programmed, I suppose, but Red Dwarf is so beloved in my household. And I know I've seen a few fan deck plans I think are really excellent of how they try and make it make sense, in many different versions. I'd love to really dissect those and have a look. And just a great ship, and it was such a fun home for 3 of the seasons, later half. Great design, and yeah, hopefully do the full episode. If you guys support us on Patreon, because these shows are amazing to do, the renders, the 1080p, all amazing, but do the full episodes and keep doing all the other shows we do, because we do a lot of shows. You guys support us on Patreon to help give us the income, the rent money, as it were, just to be able to keep the shows coming to you and put the time in we need to, because it's all about time. It really is. So help us get to that $1,000 on Patreon. We're not that far away, and we'll do these episodes, and this will be pretty soon, I'm sure.
And please like the video, always subscribe to the channel, and if you're a fan of Star Trek, we have Trekyards, check it out. Go to trekyards.com, and lots of cool stuff on this channel all the time. Always. And if you're not a fan of Star Trek, we still have Fleetyards Mission Briefings every week, so tune in for those, so it's worth subscribing just for that. Yes. Anyway, guys, until next time, I am Captain Foley.
The deceased Captain Foley, and I'm very much alive.
I'm alive again. I'm alive again. My H fell off.
That was good timing. And Colonel Cognals. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Smeghead.